Let's look back 24 years at the last time Atlanta Motor Speedway had fresh asphalt. In 97, the track was reconfigured from a 1.522 mile true oval into its current 1.54 mile quad oval configuration. Since then, AMS has hosted 38 Cup Series races, 24 Xfinity Series races, 20 Camping World Truck Series races, 10 ARCA Menard Series races, 4 IndyCar races, and countless Legends and Bandolero car races and stock car driving schools here at the Speedway. In the past 24 years, Atlanta Motor Speedway has also seen some incredibly memorable moments like Dale Earnhardt's 1/100th of a second win over Bobby Labonte, Kevin Harvick nipping Jeff Gordon at the stripe, driving Dale Earnhardt's car in 2001, and Carl Edwards capturing his very first Cup Series win after passing Jimmy Johnson in 2005. Today, we're ready to announce what will pave the way for the next generation of racing at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Brandon, why don't you tell us what's happening?
Thank you, Dustin. And most importantly, thank all of y'all for choosing to come out today. We know y'all have busy schedules, and for you to decide to come down here and listen to what we have to say, we greatly appreciate it. What's happening to Atlanta Motor Speedway is the biggest, most historic change for racing at AMS in over 24 years. It's been a hot topic of conversation for about the past 5 years, but it's time for us to repave. We're not going to stop there. We're going to reprofile our surface and create the next generation of racing at Atlanta Motor Speedway, one of the most iconic facilities in NASCAR. Obviously, that's just a snippet of what you can expect when we're finished with the project. We've known for a while that a repave had to take place at Atlanta Motor Speedway. As I said before, it's been a topic of conversation for about the past 5 years. Asphalt can only last so long. A repave has been inevitable for quite some time. Like with the Charlotte Roval, dirt racing at Bristol Motor Speedway, bringing NASCAR to the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, Marcus Smith and our Speedway development team looked at this AMS project as a chance for us to bring another first to our company and to our sport. This is an opportunity to recreate what racing could look like on an intermediate track. Steve Swift, our team of engineers, and the folks at iRacing have been working on this project details for just about a year. I know Steve's been thinking about this project for several years. He and I have talked about it many times. The new AMS will feature higher banking, 28 degrees in the turns. We're going to narrow the width of the track, which will create more competitive, closer racing experience. And this has all been tested with the 2022 Next Gen car in mind. This will produce a show like no one's ever seen on an intermediate track before. Steve, why don't you talk to us a little bit about the details of what the surface is like now and what we can expect to see in 2022 and beyond.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brandon. Thanks, you guys, for being here again. So, as Brandon said, we've talked about this race track for numerous years now. I mean, it's been, I think, in this very room that the drivers talked Bruton into not repaving it about 5-7 years ago, something of that nature. So, with that, it's been a topic that we've all looked at, and we've tried to figure out what's the best move for this racetrack, what's the best move for us as a company moving forward. So, this will be something unique. Most mile-and-a-half tracks, 24 degrees has been the pinnacle of the actual embankment that you'd want to put on something on a mile and a half, and going to 28 on a mile and a half track is really something new. It's definitely a first, and like Brandon said, with all the firsts we do in our company, Marcus wanted to make sure we were doing something that was going to be a great competition on the track and great for the fans to watch. So creating Atlanta as its own mile and a half with 28 degrees was something that was definitely on the spectrum. With that, naturally going from 24 to 28 creates and brings on a lot of different possibilities, and definitely it's a challenge. It's a challenge to construct it. It's a challenge to plan it out and make sure it happens, and it's a challenge to make sure that we actually have something that's going to create great racing. So we teamed up with iRacing. iRacing's been with us for over 10 months now, actually running the simulations, and that's kind of what you saw on the screen just now was iRacing creating that. And with the iRacing input and things that we saw, we were able to make tweaks to the track and get the track to where we thought and they thought, and it proved to be, created unique mile-and-a-half racing for the NASCAR series. With that, you know, we see, as you guys can see together there, the cars are grouped together, and that creates a better entertainment and a better competition for the sport, and definitely for these intermediate tracks. So Atlanta will be its first. It'll be the first mile-and-a-half that has this type of racing. It'll be the first time a mile-and-a-half's been paved over 24 degrees. And with all that, that's the thing that our company and Marcus pushes us to do, is to be the first and to be innovative in the sport. And this is definitely innovative for the sport moving forward.
Steve,
Next week,
I was going to say,
go ahead,
Steve, as we look forward to you know, this project, Brandon, that means our current tire-eating asphalt surface will have one last opportunity for fans. Why don't you tell us what we've got in store for this weekend as well?
Yeah, you know, as I said, this asphalt is over 24 years old. It's inevitable. The track is slick. It's worn. It creates a lot of suspense for our fans. It also creates a lot of suspense for the teams. The crew chiefs have to really think about and strategize tire wear, what's going to happen throughout the race. You know, to make the asphalt last 24 years is not an easy feat. It's been something that Eric Allgood and our entire operations staff continually work at. They go out there, they work hard to make sure that this facility is as prepared and ready to race as it always has been. But after 24 years, as I said, it's inevitable. So the teams will have one more chance to put on a good show for our fans, one more chance to race on the track that they fought Steve Swift to keep. But we're excited about our future. It's a historic change for not just Atlanta Motor Speedway, but for the industry, for the sport. Iconic, as Steve said. It's never been done before, going to 28-degree bankings on a mile-and-a-half track. It's pretty special for us, pretty exciting. But as we embark on the Quaker State 400 presented by Walmart this weekend, there's one more shot at it. We've got the Credit Karma Money 250 on Saturday. That will be followed by Legends and Bandolero Racing. We've got the Quaker State 400 presented by Walmart on Sunday, and a lot of cool things intermixed throughout the weekend. It all actually starts on Friday. The Speedway Children's Charities, laps for charity. Fans will have an opportunity to drive their car on the high banks of Atlanta Motor Speedway for one last time before we start this project. All the proceeds stay locally, go to great children's organizations in the community. We've got a fan appreciation dinner. We're going to grill some burgers. Jeb and Brandy Burton are going to grill some burgers for our fans in the campgrounds Friday night from 6:30 to 7:30. And then Sunday morning, prior to the Quaker State 400 presented by Walmart, we're bringing as much activities back for our fans as we possibly can. We're bringing a pre-race stage back for the first time since 2019. We've got a pre-race concert with Breland. If you haven't heard of Breland, Google him. Go see what he plays. You're going to like it, and I know our fans will too. And then no more drivers to your cars and they hop in and go racing. We're going to bring the drivers up to the stage, bring them across the stage, put them in Chevy Silverados, and take them around the track so that all of our fans get to get as up close and personal to the drivers as they have in a very long time. So we're excited about it. Hopefully the fans and viewers will come join us. And right after that, we'll quickly get started on the reprofiling project.
One quick programming note for NBC this weekend. We're hearing that Dale Jr. may be running this iRacing simulation during their pre-race show, so you'll be able to check out sort of what it looks like in, I would say, virtual race trim through iRacing, and that'll be during the pre-race show prior to the Credit Karma, the Quaker State 400 presented by Walmart on Sunday. We have press releases have been distributed that have all the information, details, quotes from Atlanta Motor Speedway as well as NASCAR, as well as the infographic that we showed during the presentation with to be available for a Zoom call, and we'll make that available here in the media center at 1:30. But wanted to open it up now for questions for Brandon and Steve Swift here on the reprofile and the repave here at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Kyle Nelson on our staff has a microphone. He will bring that by. If you could just give your organization name as well as your name and organization name, and we will get microphones over to you. I think Kyle's getting them booted up back there.
Test,
There we go.
test. There we are.
So we're going to go to Doug Turnbull, then we'll go into the back before coming up to 11 Alive. So we'll go to Joe after Doug.
Hey, Doug Turnbull for WSU Radio PRN. And I don't know if it's better to ask you, Brandon, or Steve this, but I'm just looking at the specs, and one of the things I have a question about, because I don't know that I know the term as well, I'm sad to say, but what is the transition apron? That's the first question, because I see that is going to have an increase from 4 to 18 degrees. I don't know if that's just at the end of the straightaways. And then secondly, what was the discussion? The biggest speculation about the reprofile was the idea of the quad oval out front and that being changed back to the old configuration. So was that discussed as well or tested in iRacing?
Yep. Yeah, so the transition apron, just to kind of put that into perspective, naturally when you've got 28 degrees, you can't just go straight flat when you come off the track. So you have to have an apron that kind of takes you from that 28 degrees and settles you out before you get to the flat section, which helps the cars to settle out if they're coming to the front stretch or if they're coming into pit road, whatnot. So the transition apron, because we're going steeper, had to go steeper as well to make that transition. When we were looking at the design, like we talked about, 5 to 7 years of discussions around what we were going to do with Atlanta, and all the way back to, do we put it back like it was originally? With the grandstand configuration the way it is and the way that the track looked, that would have been an easy fix, so to speak, but we wanted to do something on it first, and Marcus really seized us with looking at how can we do something different? How can we make a mile and a half different than, what the cookie cutter, as people have claimed it and a lot of the drivers claim it to be? What does that look like? And this is where we landed. And we feel like, with iRacing's partnership, that we came up with something that's definitely unique, and it's going to really be cool for the sport, and the fans are really going to have a good time when they see this.
I've been coming here since 1985 when I was a kid with my brother and my dad, and so I know all too well, some of the memories that the 1.522 mile true oval created. It was exciting for us to go to the 1.54 mile oval. As we all know, it has created some of the closest, most exciting finishes in NASCAR history, and I think that's basically what Steve is saying is Marcus is an innovator. The Smith family has always been innovators. This is a chance for us to bring a first to our sport, a first to the Speedway Motorsports profile, and we're extremely excited to know and find out what this will create.
We're going to go to Joe in the back.
Hi, Joe Agee, Noonan Times-Herald. I think this is the fourth time that SMI has made a major track reprofile. I'm thinking Atlanta, Vegas, and Texas, and then this one. I was wondering if you could explain how much easier iRacing's partnership has been as far as taking the guesswork out of some of these track reprofiles.
Yeah, so that's a very great question. So some of those original tracks like Kentucky and Texas and Vegas being the first one out of those four that you listed takes a lot of the guesswork out. When we did those tracks, we didn't have iRacing's partnership, and it was you're rolling the dice hoping that what you created something good, but not knowing necessarily. There's been simulations in the past, starting when we first did this track in '97. There was some really, it's almost the difference in video games. If you played video games from the old Nintendos to what they play today, right? There was really bad simulations. They would show you one car that was like a lack of better terms, a dot that went around the track that would just show you the driving path. So with iRacing's innovation today, it's made it so much easier because like we've been working on for the last 3 years, it gives you that ability to see what you're actually designing in lieu of hoping what you're designing is going to work out.
And my other question is, has any of the drivers said anything about these proposed changes?
So we've really not talked much with the drivers on this one. Looking at past and doing tracks in the past, I think Bristol's a prime example. We've had a lot of driver input. We try to look at what's good for the sport. You know, Marcus definitely has conversations with drivers and talks, you know, different ideas and different things with them, and then feeds us back with that information. We try to make sure, and I say this in kind of jest and being funny, when a driver's happy about a racetrack, usually the fans aren't, right? And when the fans are happy, usually the drivers aren't. So if you get the driver's input, you're going to build a driver's track. So we're trying to find that happy medium that we, you know, take the driver's input and put in some elements, but we want to make sure what we're creating is what the fans want to see.
It's certainly been a collaboration with not just Steve and our group of engineers and the folks at iRacing, but NASCAR as well. So have had a lot of very smart people give their input, and we're confident that it's going to provide a great experience for our fans once it's complete.
We're going to go to Alex, and then we'll go up front to Steve.
Hi, Alex Glaze with 11 Alive. I guess it's been 24 years. Just why was now the right time for this? And was there anything that happened or anything that you've seen out there that kind of sparked this change?
There's a theme to this, so Steve, go ahead.
So if we'd had it our way in the engineering department, we would have repaved the track 5-7 years ago. There's about every different type of glue, stick-em, duct tape, you name it, that's on this racetrack holding it together. We all remember the day of Daytona when Daytona blew up and they had to repair it that night. That's always a fear, you know, with an older, aging racetrack that you're worried about from an engineering standpoint. You know, from the fans' perspective, you don't want to leave a track that's not capable of competition. So we've been holding it together. The operations team, like Brandon said, has done a great job in keeping this track glued together, literally. And it's just got to the point where it's worn out. It's just like a highway when they get potholes, things of that nature. We've been on that last thread of life, and we don't see anything, and nothing happened in particular this year or last year that caused us to push the envelope quicker, but we've just been buying time, and it's that time is now. So we found, and you know, getting through all the information that we've done and engineering, it's time to make that change. It's time to finally put that, and then I won't have as many gray hairs in the end because I've been worried about it for 7 years now.
I can tell you that about every fall we start asking our operations team, have you rented the machine yet? Do you have the right materials? I think the latest material we put in there is a compound called Tixophalt. I could be messing that up, but we have gone through so many different compounds. If you went out there right now and found a seam where the Tixophalt has come loose, you would see that there's some significant cracks and wear, and over 24 years, again, it's inevitable. So now was the right time. As Steve said, the team of engineers would have liked to done it quite a few years ago. The racers have really spoken and you know, created us to extend what we would have done a few years ago. But again, you know, the timing is right, and we're excited about it.
And one thing to mention and we didn't touch base on this in the beginning, with the new pavement, Marcus also had us look at, like, what can we do to the tracks, because everybody hears after a new repave that the track takes a while to wear in. We've looked at that mix design and technology and created and came up with as best we can to age the track right out of the box. So as soon as it's done paving, we do some things to the track and with the mix design itself to try to make that track artificially aged, so it's a 3 to 4 year old track when they take the surface next year. So those things are, again, first in the sport, things that Marcus seized us with to look at how can we make the track come in quicker, how can we get the track not to be that typical new asphalt where they're really sticky single lane type scenario, and make them aged racetracks.
Let's go up front here to Steve Hummer.
Yeah, Steve Harmer with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. A couple questions for those of us who failed physics. Could you actually describe the difference that the configuration will make as far as, you know, what speed guys can carry into the corners, and how the narrower straightaways affect the racing, and what did the testing show in that regard?
Yeah, so the track itself, you know, when you look at speeds, we ran the track single car first with iRacing. They just ran the single car package, again, 10 months ago, so the next gen car wasn't out yet. We ran it with the car that they're currently running today, and the speeds were extremely fast with the 28-degree embankment, and just to give it was well over 200 average laps. And with that, you know, naturally safety is a big concern today with everything we do. They looked at, okay, what if we did something different to the car? How could we make the car stay? So what you saw in the simulation is actually a restricted car, and it's the car of next year, so it's the next-gen car, and the average speeds are about 180, and that's a 180 constant, average all the way around the track. The difference in widths, and the reason we looked at the difference in widths, naturally with the outside wall being fixed and not looking at removing the outside wall so sight lines get affected, whatnot, keeping infrastructure that's in place outside of the track, we looked at, okay, how can we steepen it up? Well, naturally, if you think about the white lines here at 24, the only way to make it steeper is to move it vertically or horizontally in, which therefore makes it steeper, and that gives us a narrower racetrack. Comparing to the Talladega's different tracks that are out there that are steep, Bristol, Daytona, the tracks that have that similar steepness, that width is normal. There's 40 feet at Daytona right now, so that's a pretty normal width for something that steep. The way it changes the racing, and it's interesting you asked that question with the iRacing scenario, we changed the front stretch 3 or 4 times on the width. We were trying to hold and maintain that 40-foot width all the way around, and as you see in that handout that you guys have got, we widened the front stretch, through the D, because they're naturally trying to make it an oval more so. We widened the front stretch out based on the iRacing information. So it affects the racing quite a bit. It does make it more tight than it normally is, but it's also doable because they do that at different tracks with a similar embankment.
And as far as the repaving goes, tire wear has always been such a big part of the strategy around here. How much, will it be next year? Will it be like crew chiefs will just have to become accustomed to an entirely different kind of strategy here?
It'll be a clean slate. Yeah, absolutely. This is a track that's never been ran. It'll be a track that's totally new. They've never ran a mile and a half with this type of embankment. The surface will be totally different. It won't be your typical Atlanta as it has been for the last 5-7 years with that cheese grater effect. So it'll be a complete different notebook. They'll have to start from scratch, and naturally with simulations that we have, they'll also be trying to build their simulations and do the same thing, but nobody will know what happens until we run next year.
What has happened so far in the testing that they've done on iRacing, there's not much, if at all, any tire wear and fall off. So we think they'll be able to have longer runs with less tire wear, which would create more strategic, competitive racing throughout a long run.
And if I could ask one more, the last winter here, his crew chief was emphatic, said, no, please don't repave this place. How much pushback are you expecting, and how much howling from the drivers, I guess, are you expecting?
Steve, you're right. Everybody we've talked to loves this track. It's a racer's racetrack. They have to drive the cars, so it doesn't matter who we ask from the racing community. They don't want us to touch it. They want us to leave it and keep going as long as we can. And as Steve alluded to a few minutes ago, you see what happens when you do that sometimes, like we had at Daytona. The track just starts coming up, and then you have to repave. So the timing was right. I expect that we'll get a lot of feedback from the drivers. I think just as with anything else, you're going to have some feedback that's very supportive, and I think you'll have some feedback that may not be as supportive. But we're in the business of selling tickets. We are confident that our fans are going to love the product that they're going to see here in 2022. And just to take that a step further, I sit here in my coat, in my button-down shirt. I feel like we should almost have music, lights, and confetti cannons. This is huge. We're changing what racing will look like on an intermediate track. This has never been done before. We can't overemphasize that. This is going to be big. I'm excited about it. I can't wait to get the project started. I anticipate the Quaker State 400 presented by Walmart, so I don't want to overlook that. It's going to be a big weekend, the first time in over a decade that we've had 2 races in the state of Georgia. So we're excited about welcoming fans back to Atlanta Motor Speedway this weekend. But I can't tell you how excited I am about this project. It's going to be cool to see it take shape. It's going to be even cooler in 2022 when the cars take the track.
Charles Odom with Associated Press. Following up on the why now question, you mentioned the 2 events, did that impact this decision to do this now, having the 2 NASCAR events?
Good question, but no, it really didn't. As we've talked about, it's time. It's inevitable. It's over 24 years old. We are going to put 650 more miles of racing on the track this year that we wouldn't have last year or the year before or the year before. But truthfully, no, it didn't. It was just time.
And one more, how soon after this race, when does the work begin and how long will it take?
No sooner does Kyle finish with Kyle Nelson in our events department. No sooner does he finish with Victory Lane, Steve will start on the project. It'll start with removing safer barrier and just prepping the track for the repave itself.
Cody Javins.
Just to follow up on Charles' question, how long will it take, and will they be able to get some testing done next? Because I imagine we'll have a spring race here again. How much time will they have to do some testing?
We plan on, our construction schedule has us finished in the end of October, and definitely, you know, naturally Goodyear will want to test tires to make sure that they've got the right product to have the best competition next year. So yeah, there'll definitely be some type of test. We don't have that date yet, but that will follow as soon as we finish construction.
With the higher banking, does that mean potentially more grooves for guys to get in, or is everybody going to want to try and hook the line like Kevin Harvick's done here for years, or do you expect a lot more places, you know, with higher banking to run?
Well, as you saw in the simulation, hopefully it came through. It will create multiple grooves, and that way we think that, and even iRacing in their testing has showed that there's three-wide racing very capable and very possible for here. So yes, definitely that was kind of the thought process, is to create that more competition and more competitive racing, and with that and everything that we've modeled so far with iRacing, we've seen that.
Three-wide racing is something that we've grown accustomed to at Atlanta Motor Speedway, so we certainly don't want to lose that. Again, the thought process here was to steepen the banking, narrow up the track to create closer, a more competitive experience for our fans to get to watch.
You got one in the middle there, Kyle.
Avery Braxton with 13 WMAZ in Macon. You mentioned just how historic this track is. It's over 24 years old. With the last couple of races being this weekend, will there be any kind of measure to commemorate or memorialize what this last era of racing has looked like and going into this new one?
That's a great question. We're not going to memorialize it because we're so excited about the future of it. We've been racing at Atlanta Motor Speedway since July 31st, 1960. I would say that this is definitely one of the top three projects we've ever done. You have to start with the building of the place, right, in 1959 and 1960. In 1997, the last time we repaved is when we introduced the new grandstands. And we're just as excited about this, if not more excited, than we were in 1997. So we're excited about our future, but at this point, no, we're not gonna do anything to memorialize the track itself. Steve is going to be tearing it up pretty quick once we get done with the track, so we might keep a couple pieces of asphalt around and keep those around to memorialize what the great finishes that this track produced.
Wanted to ask another one here, Doug. Again, I already heard the question about does having the two dates influence the timeline of the decision? And I'm pretty sure I know what the answer to this question might be. But is there any decision about what the 22 schedule is at Atlanta Motor Speedway, given this big news?
Doug, well, as you know, and thank you again, but as you know, this is a significant investment. It's a significant project. It's a multi-million-dollar project. I think it's safe to say you'll see two races at Atlanta Motor Speedway in 2022.
Any other questions for Brandon and Steve? Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Just as I said, a couple housekeeping questions. Brandon and Steve will probably be up here for the next couple minutes if you have some follow-ups. We do have a display in Victory Lane that will give you a visual sort of difference between what the 24 degrees looks like versus the 28 degrees. And then if you want to get some shots or footage out on the track, we can more than accommodate. And again, 1:30 we'll have Chase Elliott available in here, so good opportunity for follow-up questions from a driver perspective. And then Brandon, Steve, thank you guys. We're looking forward to it. It should be exciting in 2022. It's in Victory Lane. It's right behind the green.
Will it be obvious if I walk out there?
Yes, you will obviously see it.
How are you? Yeah. How are you? Good to see you again.